We got a diag on a 2014 Impala. I'm grabbing my jump box because they say that they have to jump start it, and then while they're driving, the dash lights will light up, the radio will flicker on and off. I don't know if we got bad battery connections, bad charging voltage, bad battery, who knows. Actually, let's see if it starts. The dash is lighting up. Started up strong. No jump needed. Interesting. No warning lights. We got the blower on high, the wipers on high, rolling the windows up and down. No fluctuation in RPM. No battery light, nothing like that. We got 151,768 miles. Seems to be running good. We're gonna go on a little bit of a test drive. I just wanna see if I get any sort of like symptoms. I have a really bumpy road that I like to drive down on my test drives. I'll show you guys. Sometimes when you have like what seems like it could be an intermittent like connection issue, a nice bumpy road is a good thing to drive on to try to shake things up a little bit, see if you can duplicate the concern, see if it's totally random, or see if you can, what I like to do when I'm test driving a car for a specific symptom is see if I can create that symptom over and over and over again and really get to know like what's causing that. Is it every time I turn left and accelerate onto the freeway that my fuel trims go lean? Because there's a split hose on the fuel tank assembly, so when you turn a corner it sucks air. I figured that one out one time, but it took me about 20-30 minutes of driving it to be able to duplicate the concern and understand what was going on. So this one, I want to go down this road right by my shop that needs to be redone, but for now it works perfect for test drives. This is our test drive loop we take pretty much every car on. It's a little 5-minute test drive with some bumps, some smooth roads. You can get up to, I'll just say the speed limit on a road up here, get going fast enough to feel if you have like a brake pulsation or wheel bearing noise that increases with speed. This part of the road is really nice and redone, so it's good for checking alignments. You can go nice and straight on this road. This alignment's great on this car, and here comes the bumps. I'm listening for suspension noises, clunks, pops, clicks, trying to see how the struts rebound, if they're super bouncy or if they kind of just, the car feels, you want the car to actually feel a little stiff. That's how your car should feel, unless you're driving like an old Buick or a Cadillac that's riding on clouds. But most cars nowadays should feel pretty solid. Shouldn't be getting a lot of wobble, up and down movement. I'm gonna turn the headlights on. That way we've got some loads going here. Probably gonna be annoying on the video, but I'm gonna flip that heater on, or that AC on full blast also. This part right here is really good for bearing noises. Taking some more long sweeping curves. Hit those wipers up again. So voltage is staying strong right now. It was driven to the shop this morning, so maybe it's that they have a weak battery and driving it to the shop, charge it up enough to not be showing any symptoms because it hasn't been sitting overnight. So I'll try to keep that in mind. Typically for a diag like this, we're not actually gonna start with our 1 hour of diag and testing. We're gonna start with our half-hour full vehicle inspection. Before we do any diag on any car, that's where we always start. And we don't even sell the diag until we've done the inspection a lot of the times, because like we saw in that Caravan that had a hose that was off for the purge valve, it might be something that we find just during our visual inspection. And then you don't have to go back and forth with the customer explaining your diag fee and all that. Rather just tell them, nope, we didn't need any diag time. We were able to find it while we were doing the visual. This guy behind me is getting really frustrated with my driving for going the speed limit. Got full lot today. I'm liking that, dude. Hell yeah. Oh, I just noticed I got no headlights. That's interesting. I didn't have to jump it either. Yeah. Is the battery under the hood on this one? Oh, maybe they're just not plugged in right. Is there even an engine under here? It's just burned out, dude. That's what I said, literally. Well, you're throwing. What about the taillight though?
I don't know, that one was weird. Every time you'd hit your brakes, the light would come on, and then it'd go out, and then it'd come back on. It's just the running light.
I want to see.
It's just a connection.
I got nothing so far. Now it's working perfect. Dude, are you lying to me? Wait till you see when I walked up to that Chrysler to open the door, I said, you gotta be shitting me.
Oh, gross.
Yeah. Well, Kelby diagnosed the headlight for us already. Let's try this side. Love it. I'll make just not quite enough room. Burned out as well. Okay. Both headlights burned out on the high beam and the low beam, dude. Interesting. Could be coincidence. One of the main things I want to check. Oh, that's one of these. I think we've actually had some weird issues with this fuse adapter plate on these before. I think mostly from just people not getting them seated down good. This one's all nice and tight everywhere. Little tiny bit of corrosion on the ground. That's nothing, dude. When's this battery from? It's got a newer battery in it. Activator. Let's test the activator. I can't see the cold cranking amp rating on this thing. It's a group 48. I'm gonna say 750. Checking out at 696. Battery test good. That's plenty. I'm gonna test this again after I do the inspection, because sometimes after they sit for an hour or two, if they've like dropped halfway down in cold cranking amps, then we'll know that the battery's not holding a charge. And that very well could be the case with this thing. Maybe the battery's not holding charge overnight. When they first jump start it, the alternator's having trouble keeping up with the whole system. I don't know, I'm just making up things in my head, honestly. You gotta come up with theories. So I make guesses while I'm looking at stuff, and it basically, the path changes along my diag route many times, a lot of the time. So we're gonna do a diag, or a full vehicle inspection first. That way we can look at like ground cables and stuff like that down below. Just see if we notice anything funky, loose connection at the alternator, anything like that going on. The other bulb was burned out also. I don't know where he went. Let's not leave these under there. I'll leave this off for now in case I need to check that battery some more. Plate, dude. It's got the stealth plate going on. What is that? Alright, well, I'm not going to film this whole inspection because that's boring as hell, but I'll come back once I start looking at this electrical issue. I said I wasn't going to film the inspection, and that was a lie, because I was doing the inspection, and I was like, what? How come this wiring loom isn't... And I noticed that this was obviously in a wiring loom right here, and I started tracing that down. Dude! The ECM is just sitting down here, bouncing around off the freaking subframe, pulling on all the wires. That's probably not what's causing any issue, but that's why we need to do full inspections on cars. It drives me crazy when people say they don't need a full inspection, and then we find something like this. Not that this person said that, but sometimes people say stuff, and then that's what their car looks like under there. Some of the GMs, they're mounted on top of the battery, and I've actually seen computers get shorted out from touching the casing to the positive cable, because it's right above it. There we go. Dude, that is way better. I like that a lot. You can see where it was rubbing right here on the subframe, just bouncing off of the subframe. So I don't know, dude. Maybe that could have been causing some weird issues, but I don't think so. He said that the radio was flickering on and off. Alright, well, I guess I will film the inspection. Why not, dude? It's just editing. It's just hours of my life. Little side note, these screws don't need to be very tight at all. I bet you at least half of these that I look at, the screws are stripped out on them from people over tightening them. Beautiful. We do pH balance tests on all coolant and brake fluid at our shop. A lot of times it can look okay, but fail on a pH balance or vice versa. And that really should be done every like 3 to 5 years. Every 30 to 50,000 miles is what we typically recommend on these. Our main shop color is orange, retro orange and gray. And so for all of our maintenance recommendations, we don't put them in the red like some shops do unless they're really bad. But all of our maintenance goes in the orange. We go dark red for safety, red for stuff that needs to get done, orange for stuff that's maintenance, yellow for stuff that needs future attention, green is the good. Transmission fluid looks, on the video it might not look like a very good sample because I didn't get much in there, but it's pretty dark. We recommend every 60,000 miles on transmission fluid. Radiator's looking real nice. Hoses are a little squishy actually. That one's real soft. Probably due for a set of those. It's got a little bit of oil seepage on that housing back there, either coming from the valve cover or maybe this vacuum pump on the back. It looks like this front timing cover just got resealed. That looks brand new. I'm getting a whiff of fuel smell. It's kind of concerning. Do you have open gas over there right now? Okay, I just started smelling it. I didn't know if it was this. I'm assuming they resealed the valve cover, obviously, when they did the timing cover on it. I mean, they had to have, but they didn't clean it up very good, so I'm not going to mark down that it has any leaks since it was just worked on. But like all this down here, there's just residue around everything. It's kind of damp right there, though. I'll picture it so we got reference for later. Dude, I got on a Kanye kick this morning. Just feeling all bipolar. Really glad I saw that computer sitting down there. Thirsty, dude. I just realized I never took pictures of the computer being mounted in the wrong spot. They're probably never gonna know how I saved their lives. Sometimes I feel like a robot when I'm talking on these talk to text. Got the good old snow tires on there still. And I cut my pants into shorts. Look how white my legs are. This is day 2 of wearing shorts this year. New brakes. New brakes. Solid. Shocks and struts felt real good on the test drive. No leaks. It's pretty damp right under where that vacuum pump seals. I wonder if they resealed that. On this alternator. The battery cable at the alternator is nice and tight. There's fastened and seated good. Got any ground cables we can see under here. Looks like the whole oil pan was resealed during the timing cover. This is why I like to, we do charge for it too, but I like to spend the time to clean up all this residual. And in fact, a lot of times we do that before we do the job. That way it's clean working on it. But now, I mean, we can tell this has been resealed. I can tell it's not leaking. But they might go to some other shop and have somebody go recommending resealing parts that aren't leaking anymore because of the residual oil that's left over. All I'm saying is I don't want us to fix something and then them go to a different shop and have something get recommended, because it starts making people lose trust. You got to be careful not to lose people's trust. This is a transmission cooler line leaking a little bit. Both of them are. Actually, it's just that lower one. But that's something you want to fix. I saw a comment on TikTok the other day that said leaks don't get better, and that's a good way to put it, actually. They're not always necessary to fix, but that's true. They don't get better on their own. In our inspections, I built in a bunch of these especially on leaks. We just have a whole list of all the common leaks that I could think of. So that way we can just select them without having to type notes in. It's just transmission leak, where it's leaking from, and then Kelby puts the note with the estimate on there in the notes section. I was doing this one time to get a picture of exhaust on a car, and my Snap-on guy told me it looked like I was taking cool selfies while I was under cars. Just makes me laugh every time now. A little rusty, just a tiny bit. Trying to find rust to show you guys, but just keep striking out here. Good tire wear, especially even for winter tires. Potentially have this main battery ground. Feels nice and tight. I'm gonna look and see if there's any bolt marks. No bolt marks on the battery ground bolt. So I don't think that's been disturbed at all recently. Doesn't look like there's anything leaking into it. I do think that vacuum pump though is leaking because we got a just wet drip on the bottom of the head right below it. I'm gonna do a parasitic draw test on this battery to see if it's got a draw, and then probably let it sit for a few hours while I work on some other stuff, and then test the battery again, see if the battery loses cranking amps on the test. All right, so aside from the whole engine control module, or computer if you want to call it, just sitting down on our subframe down here, I didn't see anything obvious during our inspection. So there's a few things I want to do. I want to do a parasitic draw test, and I kind of want to do that first because I've had the car sitting for like maybe 30 minutes now. I also want to do a code scan on it just to see if I have any sort of voltage or communication codes that may give me a clue as to things that might be happening. Failed radio. Dude, this thing has all the symptoms of a plugged up PCV system. I'm realizing the more I look at this. We had a leaking front timing cover, leaking valve cover, leaking vacuum pump. This PCV or crankcase breather hose right here is soaked in oil. I'd almost be willing to bet that the PCV port on this intake is plugged up. So I'm actually going to recommend that. And looking at the vacuum pump that's leaking on it, I can see that these bolts have never been off. This one would be cleaner than that if this has been off recently, like the valve cover and the timing cover. And so I'm going to say that this thing is definitely leaking because it's soaked right underneath it. And what happens on these Ecotech engines a lot of times is they'll jump on the timing chain because this vacuum pump has a little cam inside there that goes into the end of the camshaft on this exhaust camshaft. That's what turns this vacuum pump and creates vacuum for like your brake booster, your purge system, all that. Maybe not your purge, but your brake booster and a couple other things. And what happens is the cam, or the little key on the end of the vacuum pump that goes in the end of the cam, breaks off, and it causes the cam to bind up, and it'll jump time on the chain, and that can ruin the whole engine. So I'm going to actually recommend a new vacuum pump. That way we don't reseal it and then have it break later and get blamed for that, for one, but we don't want that to happen at all. So since those do fail, we're going to put a new one on there if we do the job. And then I'm going to recommend they check the service history or ask whoever did this other work on it if they fixed our PCV issue, because clearly we're getting some sort of crankcase buildup that's causing all these oil leaks. And there is a port inside this intake that goes straight to the head. And rather than a PCV valve, these use a port going through the intake to the head to create vacuum in the crankcase in order to keep this kind of stuff from happening. So I'm probably gonna at least recommend checking into that, and then recommending cleaning the crankcase is what'll happen. It'll eventually just blow the rear main seal out on it, and then you got to do a rear main seal and pull the intake and fix that. And then the other thing I want to do, I don't know if it's anything going on with this, but I want to do a voltage drop test from this battery post to each one of these that are supplying voltage to various components and systems in the car, to see if we have some sort of connector plate issue with these fuses, because I have seen that happen before too. Not just on these Impalas, but also on like the Ford Transit vans for the electronic power steering. So I'll show you two different ways. We're going to use a low amp clamp, and we're going to clamp that on our negative battery cable. And I'm going to pull up my scope and see what kind of reading we're getting on our milliamps test on our scope. But then I've got this PP draw, PowerPro PP draw monitor, that this plugs directly into the OBD2 and powers up the car. And then we can disconnect our battery and see what kind of draw we have on our draw tester. And I don't love that idea with the battery being low. So let me charge this for a few minutes. I'll do that one second. I'll show you how you check it with an amp clamp first. Because what could happen is if I kill the battery with this draw tester, it's going to end up resetting all of the memory timers on all of our modules when I get the battery powered back up. And then we may need to wait like 45 minutes to an hour for everything to power down to get an accurate reading on what the car's drawing for power. On the scope, we're going to go into our digital multimeter on Snap-on. I got a Snap-on low amp clamp. You got to make sure that the battery, there's a 9-volt inside here that has to be powered up. So I'm going to go to my low amps clamp setting. But right now, if I check around this negative battery cable, so 50 to 60 milliamps tells me that there's no draw on this car. That's totally acceptable. I'm not going to be really worried unless I see something like over 100 milliamps. And really more specifically over like 250 milliamps. If you're really going for a draw, that's typically what you'll see if something's staying on, like a relay staying powered up or something. So that's the way that I like to do draw tests a lot of times. The other thing you can do is hook up a meter with 2 probes on it, and you're going to connect one to your cable end and one to the battery post, and then disconnect, pull off your cable end, and you're going to get an amperage reading. But on your meter, like if you had like a regular meter, I haven't used it this way in years, to be honest, so I'm a little rusty. And we would use, I'd start at the 10 amps, and then if I was getting like 2 amp reading, or as long as it was something below 200 milliamps, then you could switch it down to 200 milliamps and then see what you're reading. We've dropped down a little bit. It's reading 55 milliamps. That's totally acceptable. No draw here. But let me show you how that PP draw tester would be hooked up and what we'd be seeing on that. Make sure you remember to turn your amp clamp off before you put it away. I've had to replace the battery like I did 3 times in a row. I left it on. I had to replace the battery every time I used it, which was so annoying when I went to go use it. I had to take it apart. There's not like a quick little cover either. You got to unscrew it, take it apart, replace it, put it back together. After we do this draw test too, I'm going to do a battery test on it and see what the battery's testing at. But now that this has been charging for a few minutes, this will give us enough juice to use this as our draw tester. And I'm going to make sure that I don't open the door when I'm plugging this in. The other thing you could do is, before you're getting ready to do testing on the system for a draw, is get your doors open and close all the door switches. Either you close the latch, or there might be a door switch like on the door jamb that you can tape shut. And the reason you do that is, again, so you don't reset all of the memory. It's going to wake up everything when you open the doors, and sometimes it takes like an hour for everything to power down. So we'll see if we can reach the OBD2 through the window. We know we're plugged in because we got 12.1 volts right now. I'm going to turn on our smart output. We're not putting any load on this thing yet because our battery's still hooked up. So all of our voltage should be pulling off of the battery, not so much from here. So this is slowly dropping down. We're showing like 9, 8. It probably drop down to 0 eventually, but I'm going to go ahead and disconnect our negative battery cable end and then see if our milliamps is reading the same as what we just checked with our snap-on scope. And the reason I can disconnect this right now is because that draw tester has a lithium battery in it, and it's going to power up the car. As soon as I disconnect the battery, it's going to be pulling power through the DLC from the lithium battery in here, and then we'll get a reading on here of how many milliamps is drawing from this unit from the car. Okay. All right, and right now we're reading almost exactly the same as what we read on our low amps clamp. We've got a draw of 53 milliamps. That's perfect. I think anything under, 50 milliamps is ideally about what you want to see, but anything under 100 milliamps and you really don't have anything to worry about. We've got no parasitic draw present. Now that I know that, I'm going to hook the battery back up before I open any doors or anything like that, and before the battery dies in this thing. And then I'm going to hook up a scanner and just do a code scan and see if we have any clues on like U codes or battery voltage codes. And I'm going to clean this up really quick. The other thing that PP draw tester is super good for is if you're doing battery services like this, you hook that thing up and it basically just acts as a memory saver. So you can have your battery disconnected without losing any memory out of all the modules here. I use these little pipe cleaners when I'm doing battery services. You can just get these on Amazon. As you can see, makes them look perfect. And then I just like these for the posts. I kind of walk them around like this and get them cleaned up nicely. Electrical cleaner. You can also use some baking soda and hot water. I'm just gonna do that. That's fine, dude. Battery connections, you want just clean and dry. Don't put dielectric grease between the connection. That's not a contact enhancer, it's an insulator. If you want to put dielectric grease on something, what you could do, it makes a big mess and I don't like it when people do it, but you can if you want, dude. It's up to you. Is get your battery on here nice and clean and tight. Okay, once it's like flexing the top of the battery a little bit, that's tight enough. Give it a really good tug and push and make sure it's not going anywhere. But then if you wanted to, you could put some dielectric grease over the top of this connection, like right here and under here. But I honestly just like cables to stay dry anymore nowadays. Okay, I'm gonna disconnect the draw tester. Since that was hooked up the whole time, let's do some voltage drop testing. I'm gonna go key on for this test, so we're sending power through some stuff. That way we've got loads on these systems here. When I have the key on, it's gonna power up everything that's powered off of here. And let's see what our voltage is on our post. We got 12 even. And then we can go to each spot on here. Go to the cable here. 0.01 drop. We can go to the connector plate here, because we've got a cable going to the connector plate. 0.03 drop. So that's checking this connection here. When we were checking from here to here, we're checking this connection. And come over to here. 0.04 drop. 0.04. 0.04. 0.04. 0.04. So So nothing significant, but let me show you how you would do that with a scope instead of a power probe. To be honest, I'm probably reading into this whole problem a lot more than I need to, but I kind of want to just go through different scenarios for electrical issues in this video. I got time today, might as well. I've been wanting to make some new videos. So this is more case study, but more educational. All right, so check this out. We're gonna hook this up as if we were checking for voltage, just like on a normal multimeter. You can do this under scope or multimeter. Let's start with multimeter. We're checking volts DC. Oops, not average, but we want actually DC voltage. So this is, like I said before, this is a scope. This is in a multimeter form. So if we want to see it in scope, we could actually see a line, and that's helpful too. But like, so right now, when you're using a multimeter normally, you might be checking for power and ground like this. But what you can also do is check between connections. So what we want to see is basically, if I go from our post to our positive cable, we should see a 0 volts, because this is going to measure the difference between the two. And see how we were saying 0.04 on the power probe? Checking from the post to this cable, there's a 0.04 drop. 0.04, 0.04, 0.04. If I go to the cable end to the post, 0.01. So it's reading exactly how our power probe did. So that's pretty accurate. But let me go on this cable here, 0.04. So that's telling us we have a voltage drop of 0.04 volts. That's nothing. That's totally acceptable. If I clean this battery cable, it might improve, but that's totally fine. Now you can do the same thing on the ground side. Check from your post to your cable. We've got a 0.02 volt drop. You can check to your engine, anything that's ground. 0.02 drop. So let's say we were trying to like diagnose no start. Hey Kelby, will you crank this for me real quick? We could check and see what kind of voltage drop we're getting from our battery post to this connector plate as he starts the car. Go ahead and crank it. Okay, so we had a voltage drop. Do that one more time. So 0.23 volts of a voltage drop during cranking, which is perfect. So anyway, that's one thing we could do. We see that we got no voltage drop going on this whole connector plate. That's all good. Those connections are all good. Let's scan it and see if we have any codes on anything. One other thing we need to check probably is charging voltage. Let's see what our alternator's charging. We should probably, yeah, I think we should go get tacos after this. All right, let's code scan it and see what our alternator's doing. I'm going way too deep into this because I just wanted to show you guys a bunch of things that could cause these symptoms. But I honestly think most likely we just have a not very good battery. And probably what I would do if I wasn't making a video on this is just go ahead and let the car sit for most of the day and then test the battery again to see where we're at. And then see if they want to leave it overnight. I'd rather spend less time trying to mess around and test everything and more time just trying to go after the exact symptom. That way we can just check and see what's going on as it happens when we duplicate it. And I kind of have a feeling this maybe happens when it sits overnight, but I'm not sure. First of all, I'm going to fire it up. On the newer Snap-on scanner, it shows our system voltage here all the time, at least at the OBD2. We're up at 15 volts. Seeing both of those headlights popped does also kind of make me just wonder if maybe this alternator is overcharging sometimes. 15.1 is not super excessive. I mean, that's pretty healthy. It just kind of makes me wonder though. Okay, and I'm going to turn on all loads. Wipers on high, fan on high while I'm rolling down the window at the same time, and we got staying right at 15 volts. So alternator seems to be working just fine. It's got a little bit of a rough idle, and I heard like maybe some timing chain noise. Really curious what the history is on this car. It's nothing that we're looking at today or like what we're going after, but it's just something I'm noticing. Just gonna do a full code scan, just see what we got in here. All right, so we're showing low voltage codes in all of the modules, it looks like, which totally makes sense. They did have to jump start it. Lost communication with radio, that's interesting. The radio's not even turning on right now. That's probably a good clue right there. Voltage below threshold. Voltage below threshold. Lost communication with radio. So we got a U0184. That's the one standing out to me the most right now because he was saying that the stereo was wigging out on it. It's kind of making me think that we probably just have a bad stereo. I don't know about the jump starting part though. That's interesting. Control module, tons of voltage codes. And then in the radio, oh, and the tire pressure monitor, lost communication with like all of our different modules. Interesting. So since I know they've been jump starting this thing, I know that we just cleaned that battery ground up. Don't think that has anything to do with what's going on here. Radio's not working at all now. No screen lighting up. I'm gonna clear codes and see if that changes anything. I don't think it will. But since the battery was dying on this thing and they've been jump starting it, I want to get a fresh start on all of our codes and just see what comes back, if anything. We may need to let it sit overnight, like I said, just to see what it does after it sits. But right now the main symptom I'm seeing is the stereo doesn't work. That could be separate. We could have a bad battery, burned out headlight bulbs, and a bad radio, or they could all be connected. Let's see if anything comes back just like right away on a code scan after clearing. HVAC still lost communication with radio. Okay. I'm kind of wondering, dude, if this thing got backwards jumped. I wonder if we got a blown fuse for the radio. I wonder if that's what popped the headlights. So we've got lost communication with the radio and the HVAC, lost communication with the radio and the park assist module. Since that's the common denominator and the radio is not turning on, I'm going to go ahead and say it's safe to assume that the radio is the issue with those. So we need to figure that out next. And somehow we need to determine if this is two separate issues going on. So I think what I'm going to do is put the new headlight bulbs in. I'm going to look up the wiring diagram on the radio, check fuses, see if we just have like a blown fuse on the radio or several blown fuses. I'm going to check all the fuses. Probably going to let it sit for a while and then check our cold cranking amps on the battery and just see what that's reading. Let's look up a wiring diagram on the radio real quick. Can't go a whole video without seeing a wiring diagram, dude. Hell no. Okay, system wiring diagrams, radio, instrument panel. We got a 15 amp fuse under the right kick panel. What does that supply? Our radio fuse, we've got volume going down there, media disc player, right. We got the radio itself. Looks like just that one power supply, ground on the front right A pillar. Let's go ahead and check this 15 amp fuse under the right kick panel and see if we see anything weird. I'm gonna unrack this thing because I probably, hopefully, don't need to get it up in the air again while I'm doing this, but I do need to get the doors open. Power probe is my favorite way to check fuses. Do this under the hood too, but it's just quick because I can check for power on each side of the fuse, and it'll also tell me if I got a difference in voltage between the two sides. Under the right kick panel, huh? Where, dude? Under this side? Does this come off? No, dude. Fuses, are you there? Okay. It's definitely not under the right side. It's gotta be under this side. Oh, bro, the giant cover that says airbag on it. Oh, dude. What do we have here, sir? What fuse do we happen to be powering up? Oh, radio's back on. Okay. Well, this is our issue right here. We're basically using this jumper off of the radio fuse to power up. I'm assuming the camera's off now. We gotta find different power for that, dude. That's the whole issue. Also notice that's making our parking monitor wig out. So we need to come up with a better solution for a power supply to this thing. I don't know if they're trying to get key power to it, but a lot of times aftermarket stuff like this will cause issues. I don't know. This right here, check out how like floppy this fits in here. I can see if we can tighten that connection up, and that'd probably take care of it to where they could use this jumper. So what's slot number 4? I'm gonna go look at our power distribution. I believe number 4 is gonna be our radio fuse. Let's see, number 4 radio, okay. Because what's happening is when that radio wigs out and powers down and loses communication, that can cause some other weird stuff to happen on other modules. So I don't really want this camera connected into this radio. That's a module on this car. I think we should leave that disconnected. If we could go off a fuse that's a blank, I'd rather use a blank one instead of be piggybacking off of another circuit. So I can get this camera to power up off one of these other fuses. We'll maybe just leave this in a blank spot or run this under the hood to one of the underhood fuses that gets key power that's not being used. This is a really good point to make on electrical diag. If you ever see aftermarket accessories and you're having electrical issues, this is, I feel silly now that I didn't check this first, because I saw that camera in there, but this is the first thing you'd want to check. I don't know, this fits pretty sloppy in all of these. All right, so here's what I decided I'm gonna do for now. These pins, it's like 2 different sides. I'm gonna take this sharp T-pin, see if I can spread them out just ever so slightly by pushing this in between the 2. Careful not to stab myself. Okay, so now, I don't know if you can see this gap, but I've got a little gap here, and I'm gonna try squeezing them together to see how solid that is. It's got some give to it. I squeezed it right back together. So I'm gonna go ahead and gap these. I don't want them to be super gapped out. If I go to push this into that fuse slot and it feels like it's spreading it out, like hard to push in, then I'm gonna be careful there not to spread the pins out inside the fuse box. But that little gap between the 2 spades is gonna give us more tension on these fuse legs here. Let's plug this in. Oh, that feels perfect. Now that feels nice and snug in there. It feels like a fuse. Like you'd have to maybe not use needle nose to pull it out, but it's got a good connection inside there now. Now I know our radio is going to stay on. So the other thing I can do then, and I don't even know if it's for that dash cam there because I don't see the dash cam powering up yet. That is. Yeah, it is. It's that same brand. So, yeah, radio's working perfect now. And I had a little bit of a slow crank. I mean, I've been testing this thing with the key on for like 10 minutes. But with a brand new battery like that, okay, now our camera's powering back up like it should whenever the car's running, so that's good. But what I was gonna say is with a brand new battery like that, this thing should be able to start after 10-15 minutes of the key being on, no problem. That shouldn't kill the battery. So let's do a cold cranking amps test on that battery, see what that's reading now. And then I want to fire this up and go drive it and make sure that stereo stays on, but I'm 100% sure that we got the stereo issue figured out. That was one of the symptoms he came in for, was the stereo was wigging in and out. So that's definitely that piggyback setup on that camera. Let's do a cold cranking amps test on this battery and see what it's reading now. It was at 658 before. It's testing at 534 now. We've went from 12 volts even to 11.9 volts. And maybe that camera was kicking on intermittently from losing connection, but that should be key power. Let me double check that on fuse 4 and make sure that's key power and not constant power. Radio fuse, right kick panel, hot at all times, 15 amp fuse. That doesn't say which fuse it is, so let's go to our power distribution. Battery fuse box, we need to be looking for our, not our under hood fuse box or battery fuse box, but we're looking for our, not right side of engine compartment, but we're looking for our instrument panel fuse block, which this says under the right kick panel, and I'm VIN'd this thing out, which is kind of, has me halfway not trusting this thing. Maybe there's another fuse box I didn't find under there. I don't know, dude. Instrument panel behind right kick panel. Let's go find our radio and trace it back. Might have already missed it. I wasn't really looking for that. Here we go. Radio fuse. Kick panel, 15 amp fuse. Well, it doesn't say if it's fuse number 4, but I'm gonna have to assume that that's the fuse we're after. All right, so I just let this car sit for about 30 minutes after we took care of that jumper harness on the radio fuse. Check this out. Camera's staying on. It's been on for a half hour. Now, the reason we didn't see that during our parasitic draw test is because that fuse was voltage dropping and the camera wasn't powering up. The radio wasn't powering up. Most likely is that camera's kicking on intermittently throughout the night when they park it. Let's hook up our amp clamp real quick and see what the voltage draw is reading, or what the draw is reading right now. How many milliamp draw we have. And everything else on the car should be powered down by now. I didn't open the door or anything like that. So I'd be willing to bet we've got like a couple 100 milliamp draw, maybe more. I'd say probably like 2 amps. And that's definitely enough to drain the battery overnight. So in a roundabout way, we got around to it. Like I said, this wasn't my normal diag process for something like this, but I wanted to show you guys all the different possibilities. If I would have taken a little bit more time to think about this from the beginning, I should have went over the radio issue first for a connection at the radio. But hindsight's 20/20, and I didn't realize what we were gonna find. The fact that we had, and I gotta explain something too. When they connected into this radio harness under the dash, that is a hot at all times fuse. And they went into the radio because they were looking for key power. So they key powered off the radio fuse, but that fuse is powered up at all times. So their camera's just staying on all the time. Okay, let's see what we're reading. Check it out. So it's showing negative 200 milliamps or 190 milliamps, but that's because I got this thing switched around the wrong way, like I said. So you want your arrow pointed towards the battery. It doesn't matter. It's reading the same reading. It's just positive or negative. We've got a 203 milliamp draw. Now I'm going to reach in here, pull that fuse out without opening the door or anything so I don't power anything else up. Okay. Camera's off. Just powered down. Jumper fuse is pulled. 18 milliamp draw. So that's definitely what was killing the battery overnight. That's definitely what was causing the battery or the intermittent radio issues. We don't do aftermarket accessories here. I'm gonna recommend that they leave that disconnected. If they want that dash cam hooked up, they need to get it installed properly. So what I'm gonna do is put the radio fuse back in the radio spot, leave their camera disconnected because that's what's killing their battery overnight, and let them know that they need to go to like a stereo shop and have this thing properly installed, because that's not how you do that, dude. So it just needs people to stop messing with things.